Okay, we're going to get this meeting called to order. And welcome to everybody and welcome to our guests. It's great to see everybody with us tonight. I'm going to record which board members are here. I'm Michael Jones. I'm the chair. I'm here. Do we have Olivia with us? Yep, I see Olivia's phone. And Mary's not going to be here, I don't think. Gershom is here.
Here.
And Larry is here.
I am.
Daniel's here from staff, as is Josh. Is Nick going to be with us tonight, Josh?
Nick will be joining. He should be on here in just a moment.
Oh, there he is. I saw him. Good. And very good. So welcome, everybody. We're going to go ahead with the approval of the agenda. Are we ready to do that? Does the agenda need any adjustments?
I don't believe so.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Larry?
Yes.
Thank you. Gershom?
Yes.
Great. Got a motion and a second. Michael Jones votes yes. Larry, how do you vote?
Aye.
Gershom, how do you vote?
Aye.
Olivia, how do you vote? Olivia may not be there. But that's 3, so we will go ahead.
I'll just note that she was not present at vote.
Okay. And now it's time for public comment. Anybody, see we have lots of guests tonight. That's great. Does anybody wish to talk about or address the board regarding any issue that is not on tonight's agenda?
I had some comments I wanted to share from when I shared out the board meeting notes with the teachers from May. Basically, it was just a lot of excitement over the prospect of Saba having air conditioning, maybe. So I wanted to relay that. Yeah, I had 3 different comments on super excited for the possibility of having AC in our classrooms. I think air conditioning is way more important than an electrical car charging port. I don't see the need for computer labs since we already are a one-on-one Chromebook school. AC is a priority, electric car charging port and computer lab, not so necessary. So yeah, I just wanted to relay that feedback on the additional electrical capacity that was approved last time.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Emily.
Any other comments? Okay, then we are going to move into reports. And Imelda Hernandez will talk to us about the site plan for English learners for 21-22.
Okay, I'm going to get this started and then I'll hand it over to Imelda. So this is our site plan. So just a quick overview of EL supports. When we think about English language development, we can think of it as either integrated or designated. And integrated English learner supports are provided in all classes, and designated, it's a separate class to work explicitly on English language development. For the 21-22 school year, we're going to change how we deliver, actually add how we deliver designated ELD. And so at this point, I'd like to ask Imelda, who's been a member of the ELAC-DLAC committee this year, to share out what we've discussed about the middle school and high school designated ELD plans.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Imelda, and I'm a parent of 3 students. 1 graduated last year, currently attending Oregon Corvallis University. I have 1 that's going to be starting freshman year next year, and I have a 6th grader going into 7th grade at Saba. And in our discussion with the ELAC and DLAC parents and the school site council, we talked about how for the next school year, the SABA is planning to have implementing a designated ELD in middle school during silent sustained reading time to interface with any classes at middle school level. The focus in the English development was a concern with the high school models where how they were going to be grouped for next year if the scores were not available until October. Parents were also concerned about students, how would they be identified by their peers and be ashamed. We discussed maybe retitling the designated ELD courses as media literacy through ELD to avoid creating a stigma for designated ELD students at the high school level. Other ideas were discussed, including teaching during fast 40 or a zero period, where students are invited to participate and where the main focus would be English development. We also discussed that parents would need to be informed of these opportunities to sign students up, because if we leave it to the students, more than likely they would not consider these opportunities. So we really had a big discussion on this one and how the plan is good. We all agree that English is something that should be a main focus, but just the way it's going to be implemented. And we believe that as they're progressing and getting scores, things would be accommodated to fit the needs of every student.
Excellent. Thank you, Imelda. So one of the considerations is because of COVID, LPAC scores won't be out till October. And so everyone that's currently an English learner will be placed into a designated ELD in both middle school and high school. And then as students, as we receive back those LPAC scores and we're able to reclassify students, those students will be pulled from designated ELD if parents support that decision and be placed back into the regular content area classes. Another thing we talked about was just finishing out the semester in that designated ELD class if it's high school, and then joining the class in the subsequent semester.
So Josh, and this, oh, are you finished?
Yes.
One clarification I'd like is, I believe that any teacher, whether they teach math or science, if they have students for whom English is a second language, they have a responsibility not only to teach content in English, but to reinforce the learning of English. So is that part of integrated into this plan?
Yes, we currently have, I think, a strong integrated ELD program. The reason I think it's strong is we have a very high reclassification rate at over 20% every year, which is significant. It's almost double the state average. Teachers use EL Achieve constructing meaning strategies throughout all of their classes. So, but we have not had designated ELD. So this is what's going to be different for next year. But to answer your question, yes, teachers are implementing integrated ELD currently.
Great. Any other comments on this report? Not hearing any. I would like to thank Ms. Hernandez for making this presentation tonight, and let's move on to the next subject. Anna Leonor.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I need to be able to screen share, Josh, or whomever's the owner of the meeting.
Daniel.
There you go.
All right, can y'all see my screen?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yes.
So this is a brief presentation of the college acceptances for this graduating class. It's pretty brief. If you have any questions, I can answer those after the presentation. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ana Leonor, and I'm a school counselor here at SABA. Oops. So before I share out where students got accepted into, I just wanted to briefly go over the college entrance minimum requirements, since some of you may not be familiar with the most updated requirements. So here's just a slide on the different college systems and the requirements that they had for this class. This year, they were a little bit different because the SAT was not required by the UC, CSUs, and most private schools. So here you can see in this line the GPA requirement, minimum requirement for each of the systems. Courses, all A through G, students have to complete. And then here's the SAT, ACT requirements, admissions essays, letters of recommendation, and other requirements. All right.
Oh, no.
Question? I can't see the chat, so if there's questions, I think it'd be best if you unmute yourself.
Well, no, I was just chiming in, but I remembered you said you wanted questions at the end, so I'll save my question to the end.
Okay, perfect. All right, here we go. Oops. Okay, so here is our college acceptances into the CSU system. So you can see there the different CSUs that accepted our students this year. CSUMB being the highest with 18 acceptances, which is pretty standard. A lot of our students do apply to our local CSU and get accepted as long as they meet the minimum requirements. And then San Jose, Chico, following along, also schools, Sacramento, and you can kind of see the different acceptances for the different CSUs. And the CSU system has 23 different schools in California, and our students applied to about 13 schools within those 23 schools. So you can kind of see there under each of the little logos, you can see how many students got accepted into each one of these campuses. So I'll kind of leave that up for a couple more seconds so y'all can have some time to look at it. All right, so I'm gonna move on to the UCs. So here is the admissions for the UCs. You'll again see the logos for each of the UCs and the number of students that got accepted into each one of those schools. So the highest being our local UC, which is UC Santa Cruz, accepted 8, and then UC Merced 7, and then UCLA 1, Davis 2, Riverside, Santa Barbara, and Berkeley 2 each. And here is just a list of the different private colleges and universities that our students applied to and got accepted into. So most of them are here in California. There is a few that students apply to that are out of state. And then the last slide is just an overview of where students are planning to attend after they graduate from SEBA. So we have about 42.9% of students that will be going straight into a 4-year college. So either a CSU or UC or private. And then we have 57.1% of students who will be beginning their educational journey at the local community college, mostly Cabrillo College. There is a few, though, that are going to be attending Monterey Peninsula College. So that is it for my presentation, pretty brief. So now I will take questions, and if I need to go back to any of the slides, we can go ahead and do that.
So how many graduating seniors are there?
We have 63.
And all 63 have committed to going to either a 2-year or a 4-year institution?
That is the intended plan for them.
Which means that they may intend to do something else?
Possibly. I mean, that's what is reported as of now, but students change their minds, things happen. But as of now, usually when students leave here, the intended plan is always to attend either a 2-year, a 4-year, or the military in some rare occasions. However, the actual enrollment, whether they decide to actually go to school, that can change.
Right. Another question I had was, for for the state colleges and the UCs, the SAT is no longer required, but do students take it anyway?
For this cycle, students were not required to take it at all. And then for the upcoming cycle, they are not required to take it at all either. But I did encourage students, for those who wanted to take it, I can look into finding a sitting for them. It is really challenging to find, schools that are actually, having the SAT as testing centers. So students do, if they want to, I will support them in that, but they do not have to do it because the UCs and CSUs will not use the SAT, and most privates will not use it. And those who do use it are test optional, meaning the students have the choice whether or not to send the scores.
So is UC test optional?
They are not test optional. They're not requiring it at all.
So they won't even accept it?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
They got sued. That's why. Yeah.
So have your acceptance numbers changed since the UCs and the CSUs went away from the SATs?
I would have to do a comparison of like previous years. So that would take, that's a good question that I personally, I'm curious about. So I definitely will explore that. One thing I did notice just at first glance when collecting the data, we did have a few more students apply into the UC system as opposed to other years because the SAT was not a requirement. I think at times it's a bit discouraging for some students who don't have high SAT scores to apply into the UC system. So that I did automatically notice that there was a few more students that did apply that were eligible.
Yeah, in your future presentations, it would be interesting to have sort of maybe a 5-year view of how those numbers change over time.
Yeah, and I definitely have the data, so that's something that we can I can put together and present at a future meeting. And if there's any other data you're curious about, feel free to email me, and then I can include it in our next presentation.
Anna, do we follow up with the students that have already graduated to then find out, okay, this year X number of students applied to these schools, got accepted, but then the percentage came back with this many actually went to it? I know we don't have it right away, but do we follow up with them?
Personally, that's something that I do not have the capacity to do. However, it is something that has been talked about and how we can best support our alumni. So that's something always, we do little initiatives here and there, but it's nothing that's like systematic and really, set. And it's something that is definitely one of our areas of growth. I personally do support students who reach out. So I try to build connections with students. And every year I do help alumni re-enroll back in college after they drop out. I help students complete their FAFSA even when they're in college, help connect them with different, networking, like different people that that may be seeking jobs. I recently had an alumni who was in Michigan and came back to Watsonville and needed connections. So I connected him with things like that. So I do help personally a few students here and there. But again, that's something I don't have really the capacity to do because of my different duties. But it's definitely something that we can explore better. We do have access to data, however, through Naviance. We have access to a lot of reports where it actually highlights our retention rate and how many students are actually graduating, at the 4 years, at the 5 years, at the 6 years. So the data is there. And recently, actually, Naviance, which is where we get our reports from, I was exploring it earlier today, and we actually get to see the names of the students. So they did a huge update to their system, so we can actually individually kind of track students of where they're at in their educational journey after they leave SABA.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Anna?
Nothing other
Hearing
than
none.
just to say thank you.
Oh.
Thank you, Anna.
Yes, I was going to say that was a wonderful presentation. It's very impressive to see all those kids on their way to college. So good work to both you and the teachers for making that possible.
Yep, thank you. And a very huge shout out to Miss Davis, who was an amazing support system this college cycle. It was very challenging with COVID and trying to help students virtually, but Miss Davis is always willing to learn. And I just want to give her a huge, huge shout out. Thank you, Miss Davis, for always helping me follow up with kids and making endless phone calls and endless emails to remind students, seniors about, what's going on. Thank you.
Great. Okay, let's move on to SEBA Athletics and Donna Lefevre. You may be muted because I don't hear you. I see her name there, but she is muted.
I just clicked ask to unmute.
Here we go. Are you there, Donna?
This is Donna's mom. I use her computer sometimes, and she is at a track practice right now, and she's trying to get into the call from her iPhone, I guess. I don't know where she is right now.
Okay, well,
I saw her on the call. Maybe you could just give her a minute. She's coaching, for the pole vaulter for CCS. Very exciting, but she's trying to get in from her phone, from her car. I could try texting her. Maybe you can just give her a few minutes and move on to the next item.
okay, that's a good idea.
Unless there's some students that want to share as well about athletics.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead maybe with the head of school report.
Excellent. I am going to share my screen. Okay, so this is the SEBA 2020-21 organizational goals, and this is the final board update for the 2021 school year. What I'm going to discuss today is SEBA's 2021, the school year's 5 priority areas and how we did on that. Then I'm going to discuss SEBA's ongoing priority areas, and then finally SEBA's overall performance. So our 5 priority areas included charter renewal, governance, student engagement, maintaining community, and facilities. For charter renewal, we said that PBOSD would authorize our charter renewal for 5 years. The metric we chose was have it renewed by January 31st, MOU approved by June 30th. MOU stands for Memorandum of Understanding, and no conditions added to renewal charter contract. The charter was approved unanimously for 5 years, so we met that. After meeting with Youngman Corps regarding our MOU, they advised us to wait till PBOSD reaches out to us, and that if a no MOU is signed, then the one that we currently have will just continue on into the next charter term. So I'm following their advice. They provided that advice to me on April 2nd. And then PBUSD did not add any conditions to our charter or current operating agreement. So really happy that we were able to meet that goal and continue running for 5 more years as SEBA College Prep. Second priority area was governance. So for this one, we had 4 goals. Board members consistently attend monthly meetings. Board members complete annual trainings and follow legal requirements. Board adopts and follows annual due diligence calendar. Board members engage in support charter renewal process and community advocacy. We had 7 different metrics that we were rating ourselves against. The first one was, could we have at least 80% of our board, so 4 out of 5 members on average attending SEBA board meetings, and we were able to hit that. 82.6% attendance from July through this meeting, or through the May meeting, which was, I think, 15 meetings. We had a couple meetings in a few months. For the board meetings having quorum, we were able to have every single meeting meet quorum. So thank you, SEBA Board of Directors, for helping us to achieve that metric. Board members completing annual training. We did that back in July. Everyone completed that. Board members involved with charter renewal support. I received support from all of you in some way, so we were able to meet that. Board members making a financial contribution. Some of you reached out to me for different ways you were going to support SEBA. I think for a couple of these metrics, I think if I would have gone back, I don't know if I would have included that. So I'm unsure if everyone has made a financial contribution or not. So that one's TBD. For Form 700s, which is the form required for all board members per the Brown Act, that was completed 100% of our board members. Thank you all. And then finally, not related to the SEBA Board of Directors, but we wanted to establish a school site council and an English learner advisory committee. We did establish that school site council. We had 10 total meetings this year. The dates are listed there. And then we had 4 English learner advisory councils, or ELAC-DELACs, and the 4 dates are listed there. So I'm really proud of the fact that you're able to get both those school site councils and ELAC-DELAC committees off the ground, because it's a place where we can bring together teachers and parents to talk about issues that SEBA are facing. All right, number 3, student engagement. So this is 3 of the 5 priority areas for the 2021 school year. We wanted to get 90% of students attending classes. I was a little bit worried about this when we began the year, considering it's distance learning, and I'm really proud of the fact that we were able to achieve 96.7% attendance this year. And I know we have some teachers on this call as well as students. I think some people might point out, well, sometimes people log on and then log off quickly. But when we looked at our numbers, we looked at what was registered in Synergy as people being present, this was our final number. So we were able to achieve that metric. Big shout out to both our staff and our students for showing up to class every day to go to class. It's not easy this year, I know, and I'm really proud of all our scholars who are able to get that attendance number so high. I don't know what the numbers are, but I've got to think that we have one of the highest attendance rates in the state. So that's a big shout out to the whole community, all the school attendance review team for supporting this, all the students and our families for making sure that happens, because we know it's been very difficult. Assignment completion. We said 80% of students completing assignments. This was another metric, kind of like the financial contribution, where it was difficult to, how do you define this? So I wrote inconclusive there. I didn't want to say yes or no to 80% of our students completing assignments on time. 3, 80% of students meeting internal assessment targets. We did not meet that. We used the internal assessment targets as Star Renaissance being at grade level. And this was a kind of a baseline year for us. And it was also a pandemic year. So not necessarily a surprise. And we know we've got a lot of learning to do when we come back. But I'm still really proud of everybody for just showing up and being part of school every day. And then finally, 100% of our students not attending classes are followed up with, and we had a great system this year of the office being our first level of calls. And so they would make phone calls on a daily basis. The grade level academic coordinator would interface with teachers and families to figure out what needs to happen there. So that was kind of a second layer. Then we had school attendance review teams every Thursday come and meet. And we were looking at students who missed 3 full days of school in a week, which sounds like a really low threshold, but that's the threshold that the state set for all schools in California to begin the school year. And so we would look at a list of every student that missed 3 whole school days in 1 week. And then we would follow up with those students, and then as necessary, send letters home and set up, do home visits and set up school attendance review team conferences. And so we did a number of home visits this year, as well as a number of school attendance review team conferences. And that was really, we were able to successfully, at the beginning of the year, we had quite a few students to get through. And by this quarter, we had maybe less than 3 weekly that were missing that amount of school. So it was a great team effort, students, staff, everybody, to hit this student engagement mark. So really proud of that. 4, maintaining community. So here we had a goal of having 50 families attend our SEBA Town Hall parent leadership meetings. We were able to achieve that. We had an average of 65 parents attending our monthly parent leadership meetings. Those are held on Saturdays, which I think was a big bonus for us. We had one every month on Saturday it was in English at 9 and then Spanish either 9:30 or 10, depending on the length of the agenda. So again, wonderful parents showing up to all these meetings. When I talk to other school leaders, they're always just almost shocked that we have this many families coming to our parent leadership meetings. So it really says volumes about our community. The second metric that we had was 35% of our students participating in non-academic enrichment offerings. I had our student activities coordinator, Jackie Alcala, look up the data for this, and we had 12.5% of our students participating in enrichments, which we didn't hit our mark of 35%. I knew that was really high to start off the year. And I want to celebrate that still in the 80s. That means 80 kids are coming to some type of non-academic enrichment on a weekly basis. So a big shout out to everybody who kept the Save the Spirit alive in lots of different ways. We had tea time, we had sports fandom, we had lots of different clubs going on after the school day. And that will be something we need to keep our eye on when we come back to the building next year to make sure that number gets back up to where we've seen it in past years. Third, 80% of students and families reporting that they feel connected and supported by the SABA community. 90% of students reported that they feel they have one staff member they could reach out to if they needed something, which is wonderful, and that really says volumes about our tight-knit community. And then finally, 100% of families whose students are not engaged with our program at attendance data or assignment submissions are followed up with weekly. We talked about that in the previous slide. We have this kind of layered support model that really worked well for this school year. All right, facilities. I gave this one a goal exceeded because we finished off our renovations on time and within budget by January. The building permit was closed out by January, and actually the building repair was complete in December. And our facilities meeting occupancy standards, which would be, okay, we met our goal. But then with the finances and how they changed for the school year, we were able to complete additional renovations, which is preventing water intrusion along the storefront windows by the staff teacher lounge, and renovating our staff teacher lounge, and adding a maternity room adjacent to that teacher lounge. And so that's why I'm saying our goal is exceeded, because our facility is really going to be outstanding once all of these projects are done, which is expected to be July 2nd. They just started today, actually, to begin the outside work on doing that additional construction work. So a big shout out to Daniel Ornelas for being the point person on a lot of this and making sure that we work together to complete these goals. All right, so those were our 5 priority areas for this year. And then in addition to that, we have ongoing priority areas. And so forgive me, this is long. All of these areas are important. And so we are going to go through each of these data points. So for the ongoing priority areas, some of them are repeats and some of them are new. We have governance, finance, facilities, human capital, academic program, school culture, organizational leadership, and the California School Dashboard. So governance, we already went over this for the 2021 school year. This will be an ongoing goal. We can change the metrics year to year, but I'm not going to repeat myself here, but this was an ongoing priority area. Finance, so this was not in our 2021 goals, but we wanted to here adopt an annual budget and follow that. We were able to adopt the 2021 budget, and our lowest days cash on hand was which is 4.5 months or 440 days, was the month of June, the month we're currently entering for the school year. So we are following, and we're in great financial shape for this year and the coming years. Clean annual audit. The audit was clean. There were no issues or findings. That happened in December 2020. If you can think back to that meeting that we had, it was right after Thanksgiving. Adoption of a reserve policy. We did not do this, so I didn't take a reserve policy to the board. I did put this as a yellow though, because we're in a financial position where we easily could. And in fact, I think we will take a reserve policy to the board to begin the next school year, because it wouldn't place a significant financial obstacle on SABA, or financial burden on SABA, excuse me. And then finally, fund development targets and priorities established for the SEBA Public School Foundation. This one we did not meet. I think we're still got to work a little bit more on our fundraising efforts there. And I put an asterisk next to this one because I'm counting that one as we not being met. And we also placed more of our attention to this third organization, SEBA Spartan LLC, which, if you remember, is the vehicle that we'll use to potentially purchase our facility. So a lot of time and effort went into that. Our application was actually submitted to the city of Watsonville last Friday. That permit process to get our conditional use permit to become permanent, which will allow us to facilitate the bond transaction, could take between 6 months and a year. So the reason we didn't spend more time on fundraising for the foundation was if we were able to achieve the building purchase, we went over this in a previous board meeting, it would be a significant financial benefit to SEBA. And so that's where we wanted to spend our energy and time. Facilities. Okay, we talked about this one already because this was a 2021 priority area. So it's also an ongoing priority area, and I will keep you updated as they're working on the renovations. And hopefully when we meet back here for the July meeting, we can say that that project is wrapped up. Human capital. So here we had 4 metrics that we were measuring human capital by. The first was staff turnover rate at less than 15% annually. We have 9 out of 60 staff members exiting at the end of the school year, which was 15%. So we were able to meet that staff turnover rate percentage. 80% of staff reporting satisfaction with training and support on a regular surveys. In April, the California School Staff Survey, 87% reported that they agree or strongly agree that SEBA is a supportive place to work. There were 44 respondents. That was the California Healthy Kids Survey staff version that was administered in April. 3, all positions filled by the first day of school. We went over this way back when, but yes, we did have all positions filled by August 3rd of 2020. And then decreased workers' compensation claims by 10%. We did not achieve that. And so during the 1920 school year, we had 3 workers' compensation claims. For this school year, we actually had 4 workers' compensation claims. So we went up instead of decreasing our claims. So that'll be where we'll need to work on reducing those claims for the upcoming school year. Academic program. So here we said 50% of students proficient or advanced on state assessments. We did not have the California SBAC exam or state assessment this year. It was an optional exam to administer, but rather than administering that, we administered the state Renaissance Star exam for a 4th time. And looking at the data on that, our reading scores showed that about 22.5% of our students were at or above grade level, according to the Renaissance Star, and about 52% of our students, 52.7, were at or above grade level on math. And this data we're going to take a closer look at in our June 15th meeting. I have a slide presentation ready to go for that as well. And we can talk about what the implications are for each of those numbers. I know there's lots of strong opinions about the Star Renaissance, and we can explore that at our next meeting, which is mid-month. Next one was to implement norm referenced internal assessment. So we went from having a NWEA map. We stopped working with them some mid-school year last year. And so we were kind of in a space where we didn't have any norm referenced assessments. And so one of the metrics here was to adopt one, and we were able to adopt and then administer and get feedback on the Renaissance Star assessment. So we have that up and running. 90% of 5% of students graduating on time. We were able to meet that. 62 of 63 will graduate on time, and 63 out of 63 will graduate by the end of the summer, I am confident. So we're doing really well there. A big shout out to Brenda Davis, if she's still on the call, for supporting all of our seniors, as well as Anna Leonore, who's been there every step of the way. 4% of students accepted and matriculated to a post-secondary program. We saw on a slide deck in the previous presentation where we had, it sounds like 100% of our students either going to a 2-year or 4-year program. We had our goal of 90%, so I'm saying we didn't meet that. The next one, students meeting UC entrance requirements. So we had 80%. We were just below that at 79%. so it's close. I gave us a yellow there. We had a higher number of students opting to do the CalMin. And so by opting to follow the CalMin graduation requirements, the students no longer will meet the UC-CSU A through G requirements. And so that's why we see a lower number there of approximately 13 students not meeting those UC-CSU entrance requirements. Vertical alignment was a metric for us this year. We did not get to that. Obviously a challenging task to undertake considering we're all in distance learning or in hybrid. So I put yet, we're going to tackle that next year. And then finally, curriculum adoption. Curriculum is adopted in all subject areas. The deadline 6/4. I think that we're only pending instructional materials for math at this point. So the rest of the subject areas, science, middle school, science, high school, social studies, middle and high school, English, middle and high school have all adopted. So we're in great shape there with our academic program. But considering this, I gave us an overall of goal not met for this because of the Renaissance performance as well as no vertical alignment and our UC entrance requirements numbers being just slightly lower than what we want, where we wanted to see them. All right, school culture. So this one, we had to set up a goal of 90% average daily attendance. We talked about this earlier. 96.74% was our average daily attendance for this school year. Survey showing staff and students feel safe, supported, and able to focus on learning in regular surveys. So we administered the California Healthy Kids Survey. 63% of students reported feeling supported and connected in 7th grade, 70% in 9th, or 9, that's a typo, and then 60% in 11th. So that will be our baseline that we can work from in subsequent years, which was the goal for this year. Just said that we wanted to establish a baseline. 3, decrease in discipline. This one was inconclusive. There really wasn't, it was apples to oranges. We are using Educator's Handbook, but with a hybrid, we do have students on campus, but it's not comparing our office referrals to a typical school year. So I'm not going to say that the referrals are decreased, but I don't think it's a fair comparison. So I just left that one as blank. Student participation. So again, here, that's where we talked about 35% of our students participating in some type of extracurricular activity. We had 12.5% of our students participating in club and enrichment, so that's 66 students. Of our 280 high school students, 55 participated in high school athletics, which is read on here because the goal was 35% overall. At the same time, having 55 kids, which I think we're going to hear in a little bit here, is something to be proud of, and that's between cross country, male and female basketball, male and female soccer in the winter, and then track and field in the spring. And then I was unable to get an exact count for students attending homework clubs in the afternoons. That one I left blank. And then finally, 100% of our teachers received a coaching and evaluation. So that is our school culture area. So next up, organizational leadership. We said 80% of our organizational goal metrics should be attained for this year as a measurement. If we look at the 2021 priority areas, we did hit that 80% mark. If we look at the ongoing priority areas, we're a little bit below that, at 79.3% of the total metrics that we listed. To go a little bit deeper into that, California dashboard was our final priority area. That's on pause right now, especially with SBAC being waived. So we will establish goals for 21-22 once that comes back online and SBAC comes back, along with all the other metrics that we're using there. That's an example of what the dashboard looks like. That came out a little bit blurry, but basically what this shows here is our priority areas. In this top row here, we can see that we had 5 priority areas: charter renewal, governance, student engagement, maintaining community, and facilities. Number of metrics there, number of metrics met here in this 3rd column. The 4th column is number of metrics not met. We did not meet our assessment targets for student engagement. We did not meet our enrichment participation for maintaining community. So 2 metrics not met. And then we had that should say 4 that were inconclusive there. So that's a typo there. So overall 80% on overall performance. And in the ongoing priority areas, we've got our 8 priority areas that I just went over, the number of metrics listed, the number of metrics met. So 31 total metrics, 23 met. And then the ones that we did not meet, I listed. So fundraising metric, workers' comp claims, assessments, vertical alignment, and UC requirement, UC entrance requirements for academic program, student participation and enrichment, athletics and academic supports, and then metrics that were inconclusive were our reserve policy and our discipline referrals. So lots of data there. But overall, I'm really proud of how our students and our staff performed during this unique school year. Any questions?
Just one comment to start off and just say that given the challenges that faced the administration and staff of SEBA, I think that's a pretty amazing report card for what you were able to accomplish this year. So congratulations to you and all the staff at SEBA.
Thank you. It's definitely a team effort, and we have incredible staff who are beyond dedicated working here, which I feel really fortunate to be a part of. So I do see Donna on the call now. I was going to go to the LCAP hearing, but do we want to go back to the sports presentation, Michael?
Yeah, let's do that. Oh, well, are there any more comments about the principal's report?
I actually just really quickly had a couple of questions. So I was curious with the human capital section, the 9 out of 60, how does that compare to prior years in terms of staff turnover?
Let me look that up and get back to you.
Okay. I've been a part of prior conversations with the board around the part-time policy, and it kind of prompted like conversations around what kind of teachers we wanted to retain at SEBA, or what kinds of staff we wanted to retain at SEBA. And I just kind of want to prompt an open-ended question to the board of like, how high on the priority list is staff retention to the board and to administration? And that's just kind of an open-ended philosophical question. The second question was about the school culture. I noticed that we didn't meet the goal for student participation in enrichments. And for me, I love enrichments. I love running clubs. And right now it's kind of ambiguous for the next year. Teachers will receive a FAST 40 stipend for an academic after school enrichment or intervention. And I was curious if this kind of begs the question about a stipend for running clubs, because I think we would see a higher turnout if teachers were really given the time to put in to make these clubs really cool. So those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. As to the club stipend, yeah, I've had a few teachers who came up to me individually and asked about that. And so we are looking into that and just trying to figure out how that's going to impact the budget, but it's something we are looking into.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for Josh? Hearing none, looks like we have Donna in her car in the parking lot.
Hey, hi. Really sorry about before. Yeah, I'm at Watsonville High School right now because we finished up practice and I had to jump right on the call right after practice. So using Watsonville's Wi-Fi for this call. But I also really want to appreciate everyone that made it tonight. There's a lot of students on the call, parents as well, and other community members and staff that came on because students from the athletics program wanted to reach out to our wider community because they knew that they would gain a lot of support. And I think that this large turnout reflects how many people are really wanting to see a sustainability and growth of our sports program. So I really appreciate everyone for being here. And one little note, I did notice, I also want to give an extra appreciation to, I have a couple athlete presenters that are going to help me share. Itzel Gomez, who's a senior, Coral Garcia, who's a sophomore, Ariana Mendoza, who's a sophomore. We also had Rocio that was going to present, but I don't see her on the call. So maybe Coral, you can do the intro slides that Rocio was going to do. That would be awesome. And then I'm going to share my screen, I think.
You should be able to, and if not, I have the presentation for you.
Okay.
Here you go.
I think I got it. Okay, so hopefully you can still see the presentation.
Looks good.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna start out with Coral. Hopefully she's okay with getting us going for slide 1.
Hello, Saba School Board. Thank you for hearing our presentation today. We are representatives from the Saba Athletics Program, and today we're going to talk about highlights from the seasons and the importance of the program here at Saba. How can we increase participation? How can we ensure equity? And how can we ensure sustainability and growth? We will end with a summary of our proposals. We would like to start by sharing the current sports that we offer at Saba. In the fall, there is boys and girls cross country. In the winter, boys and girls basketball and soccer. And in the spring, we offer boys and girls track and field. The program has been offering these sports for 4 years, and this is the 3rd year that Saba has been a part of the Pacific Coast Athletic League. For each team, we have had between 10 and 20 athletes participating. Even though this year held many extra challenges, there were still a high turnout for our sports teams. And it was realized just how crucial providing a sports program is for supporting our community here at Saba. A parent shared these words about the program. I realized that coaches not only coach their athletic skills, but help students through their social, emotional needs too. In sharing this with my husband, we came to the conclusion that in sports, students have the opportunity to work on making their bodies strong. And at the same time, they work on making their minds stronger too. It was so wonderful to see all the Spartans running and training with the same purpose. Students have different reasons for participating in sports. For some people, they are working on developing skills within the sport to excel at a competitive level. For some, they are looking for a way to stay active and healthy. For some, they are looking for a way to connect and have fun with friends and other students in the Saba community. While participating in the program, students get to develop their discipline and time management. They develop confidence. They are given a space to build relationships and trust with peers and coaches. It is a way to get their mind off the stress going on in their life, whether that is at school or outside of school. It is a way to keep kids out of trouble, especially for energetic kids. Sports can be a way to release all that energy. Sports form positive memories of high school for students to carry through their life. And having a sports program allows community connections to be built across grade levels and between students and staff. Having sports is a way to make our whole community feel happy and healthy.
We want other students to benefit from what sports offer, and so we have been brainstorming ways that we can increase participation in the program, adding more sports. Some suggestions from students at Saba are volleyball and tennis. Another thing is we can add more team options for sports which are the highest interest. JV is an option for high school only, or an intramural program that could be co-ed and mixed grade to act as a space to develop skills for students to new sports. Another way to increase participation in the program would be to add a middle school team. There is a high interest and request every year from students and parents to make this happen. Adding a middle school sports program would develop athletes and routine for sports participation at an early age and increase the chance of continued participation into high school. It would also be a great way to provide the benefits of sports into our middle school students. Some other ways that we can increase participation in our sports program is by promoting the program at the start of and throughout the year and adding awards to build motivation. Some ways to increase the program is to have at the club fair and provide updates during student announcements and homeroom. We could also send swift texts to parents about student athlete paperwork deadlines. Ways that we can motivate athletes that join is through the end of season awards, awards for semester or the year and leadership, and establishing and updating records for each sport that can be displayed in the auditorium or at a designated spot in the school. As a way to include students into the sports program that are not interested in being an athlete is to add other roles that support the needs of the program, such as student trainers. Students who are interested in pursuing a career in the medical field could participate as student trainers who are trained in the first aid procedures and protocols, keeping first aid backpacks stocked, and putting together ice bags for practice and games. We could also include a field journalist. This could be a person to take pictures at the game and collect stats and anecdotal updates to be included into the student announcements and or on the school site. There would also be a managerial internship where a student acts as an assistant to the athletic director.
Ways we can ensure the equity and access to the sports program here at SEBA is by supporting students with transportation to practices and competitions. This has been a challenge with every sport at SEBA for competitions and for practices that are off-site. We don't want transportation to be a reason why some students feel they cannot participate in a sport after school. SEBA was made to help low-income families around the area. Many of the students' parents do not have the time or money to drive their students to games or practices. In the past, coaches have provided transportation using their personal vehicles. SEBA has rented vans for coaches to drive or even the use of public transportation when parents are not available to drive. Even so, there are still some competitions that students have to miss because of the lack of transportation. And the need to go off-site for practice for most sports means that some students miss out on the opportunity to participate altogether. This means transportation is an area of growth that we must focus on for our program. If the school could purchase vans, these could be used by coaches to ensure that students are missing practice or games because they couldn't find a ride. This is a great way to support the families in our community. Also, the vans could be used as transportation for other SEBA groups as well for field trips or other after-school clubs. And also, the coaches that do give rides to other athletes, they may not have like enough room in their cars for all the athletes. And I know this has happened before where a coach has been asked to leave a player behind, and that's not fair to the team or anyone or like that player. So this coach had to make 2 trips, and that's just not fair.
Still you, Coral.
Our building has limited outdoor and
Oh,
indoor space.
One right before that. School uniform.
School uniforms have been a controversial issue here at SEBA. However, when student athletes are allowed to wear their team uniform on game days, you would see full teams wearing their uniforms with pride. Both soccer teams have done fundraisers to be able to get uniforms that could have the athlete's name on it, or for the purchase of team warm-ups. One season, the boys basketball team was sponsored by a team parent to get warm-up shirts. However, not all teams have had the same access to fundraising opportunities. There have been teams that don't have enough correct sizes for all athletes or even enough jerseys for the team. Beyond the jerseys, warm-ups are a key part of the athletic uniform. It ensures that all athletes are in the right gear to perform their best and minimize pulled muscles, especially during the colder parts of the year. As a program, we should make a goal to update the jerseys of a team every 3 years so that our athletes feel confident going onto the court, field, track, or course. We should also invest in a set of warm-ups that athletes can use during their season. This could be a warm-up set that is used for all sports and can be available to rent out or can be purchased by athletes if they would like to have their own. This could be a way to fundraise for the program while also ensuring that our SEBA athletes are set up with the gear they need to perform at their best and stay healthy.
Our building has very limited outdoor and indoor space if we want to have even small groups of students being active regularly. When the sports program started out, the boys and girls varsity soccer teams shared the large turf, which is about the size of a penalty box, and the small turf, maybe the size of the goalie box, and also made use of the parking lot by putting up cones to ensure that cars didn't drive through, while girls and boys basketball would be sharing the back and opposite side of the building drive-through for their practice. Cross-country runners would spend their time on the levee or at a nearby trail, but sometimes we would meet on a Saturday practice at Pinto Lake to run the course. During track and field, we would go to Pajaro Park and run intervals around the soccer turf. Oftentimes, coaches have had to find ways of creating opportunities for students to build the skills on or close to site because transportation would limit the number of students who would be able to participate. As the program has developed, because that was 4 years ago, and 2 years ago even, we were working that way. But as the program has developed and coaches have stayed on for more years, networks were established, and with each year we created more opportunities for athletes to get a chance to practice semi-frequently on the type of field, court, or track that they would compete on for that sport. Right now, we rely on the connections of coaches or parents to gain access to facilities for some of our sports. And that is not a good system to ensure the sustainability of a program. We know that as a small school, we will be limited in what we can have available at our school site. However, there are steps that we can take. We can invest in a gym. I heard that maybe that's going to be a possibility. So hopefully it'll have a regulation size basketball court, but we could also plan for that gym to have the possibility of an indoor soccer zone so we can make sure that we're looking for the right equipment. We can look for a place to invest in a field or build connections with people that are looking for things like that. Like I think Michael Jones mentioned that maybe the Rotary Club in the area was thinking about investments like this. So building connections with people that are establishing these facilities would be our number one. Having an athletic director who has connections or is able to establish connections in the area is a valuable asset for gaining access to facilities. So that's something we could look for when we're hiring. Invest in transportation so that if field access is far from campus, that we can provide rides to athletes that need it. And then finally, prioritizing consistency of staff. Obviously, there are certain circumstances where you would not renew the contract of an employee, but if SEBA puts value in retaining staff, that would help in the success of programs that are getting built over time, like developing routines and establishing connections for practice and game locations. And then on top of that, it also makes for a strong and positive school culture when you have staff that stay at the school for a long time. Another factor that comes into play when we're developing an athletics program is fundraising. Fundraising has been mostly a coach's responsibility and so has varied by team throughout the years. The challenge is that small fundraisers like food booths are limited because of the restrictions from our vendors that prevent students from selling food before and after school. We're able to do candy sales, however, which were a huge success, but sometimes feels a bit counterintuitive to what we're trying to do with sports. So I think it would be good to look at ways that we can work with our vendors to make other opportunities for fundraising possible. Then other fundraisers that have happened through our school were done at local restaurants, where they give a percentage of the sales that happen within a 2-hour time frame if the customers mention that they want to support SEBA's program. Those fundraisers vary in their success depending on the year, depending on how much publicity it got, but it also can be a good way to host a team bonding event. The most successful fundraiser that we've seen was done by an individual team with clothing sales. And that was at a time when SEBA was starting to allow students to wear SEBA sports gear or other club shirts as their in place of their uniform to school. And this coming year, there's a similar change to the uniform policy that is going to be happening. And it would be a great opportunity to have some SEBA sports attire available where the profits, when people purchase those items, could go towards the sports program. Last thing we want to really talk about is what kind of systems we can put in place to ensure that we have a program that's going to be able to hold even with the change in coaches or different kinds of staffing. So 2 years ago, I spoke at the SEBA, I spoke about the SEBA athletics program to the board in order to advocate for an official position for athletic director to be a 0.5 position. The description of the position was put together with another coach here at SEBA. Much of the information was similar. So here was what we had put together 2 years ago. So much of the information was similar to what we are bringing attention to in this presentation. What we're asking for is a dedicated and protected time for someone to be working on these tasks that are needed to keep our athletics program functioning and growing. It was decided in the end that the position would be a 0.2 position at the school. So for 2 years, we've had an athletic director role that should be a 0.2 position. If we had 8 hours per week of dedicated time towards supporting our athletics program, we would have been able to see some growth. However, this protected time and dedicated work to the program did not happen. Next year, let's see if I can go back, next year, we are seeing a reduction in the position from a 0.2 position to a $4,000 stipend. This reduction is significant. However, we can still support the program if we protect at least 1 day per week for the staff who is hired to the position. If it's a full-time teacher that's hired, the way the school can support is by having an administrator or a sub take over that class 1 day per week. They could conduct a character strong lesson. They could help support in any way so that the teacher does not have to plan a lesson for that day, because that day they're protected with working on athletic director duties only. If it's not a teacher, then, and it's another staff member at the school that isn't tied to a classroom, they can have 1 day per week protected where they're not involved in any other tasks or meetings with the school. It's only athletic director responsibilities. So that's something the school can do to still protect what we're losing next year if we don't establish this 1 day per week protection of time. And that's going to ensure the sustainability and growth of the program. That is really, really important to our students, as you can see from their attendance, and really important to the families that this is provided. Oops, sorry.
The proposals for the athletes program as next steps to support some of the challenges and work on growing the program would be reestablishing the position of an athletic director at the school, invest in transportation, invest in sports equipment, faculties, and gear. We know that the programs are not built overnight, but we are looking for the school to establish a system that we ensure the continuation of the athletics program here at SEBA. As a way to keep the board informed about SEBA athletics, we would like to see a SEBA athletics program report at the start and finish of each sports session. A pre-session board report would include who is the coach and about how many students are anticipated participating, reflect on how we could grow those numbers. Where will the location of practice and competitions be? Anticipate challenges and share ideas for addressing those, and sharing goals for the season. A post-season board report would include the numbers of students who have participated, highlights from the season, and areas of improvement for the following years. This will ensure accountability for the school to continue to provide these opportunities, and would give the board an opportunity to weigh in on how we can continue to grow as a program, as well as share highlights about a very positive aspect of SEBA's community. Thank you so much for your time and acknowledging the values of SEBA athletics program, and hopefully in the coming years we can invite you to see in action.
Thank you very much.
That was an impressive presentation. Congratulations to you, Donna, and the students that were part of that. That was fantastic. Any questions or comments for Donna or her crew?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So there's 6 sports. I see where Donna, you're coaching 3 of the sports. Are the other coaches walk-ons or are they teachers at the school?
One is a teacher at the school, one is an administrator at the school, and one is a parent of a student that's going to come. And then, we had one other teacher that supported with cross country and track and field.
And I ask because there's a lot of data out there about coaches who actually teach at the school and the positive effect it can have when you have connections between the classroom and the playing field. So Josh, I would encourage you to hire as many teachers who can coach a sport as possible in the future.
Will do.
And then the other, it's not a question, it's maybe a request. Can somebody break down the GPAs of all the students that are participating in athletics and compare that to the GPAs of the kids who aren't competing in athletics? Because typically at comprehensive high schools, athletes have better grade point averages than non-athletes. So I'd really love to see that data as well.
That would be an interesting thing to look at future presentations. So that's why I did put in our proposals that it would be great to see sports being presented regularly at the board meetings. And I kind of highlighted those board meetings that it would be important, like in August, because the cross country season starts in August. So hearing from the sports program and how it's going to be set up would be a great thing to hear. And then in November, that's when cross country would end and the winter sports would begin. And so having a presentation in November and then again in February would help to be able to hear about all of those sports and just how it's going. And then maybe that kind of data could be included.
And then lastly, are you aware of the Positive Coaching Alliance?
Yeah, they talk about it at the meetings for coaches.
So I really love it if you guys could start exploring some of those connections and seeing what you can do to bring that kind of coaching mentality to the school.
I agree.
And I saw Anthony had his hand up. Anthony, you still there?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say I really agree with the idea about the van, because it's like you can use it for many different reasons, not just transportation for the sports. You can use it for many other things. And also, even though I'm not in middle school, I think we should still have sports for them, because I know a lot of kids that really are into them, but they like SEBA doesn't have it as an option. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, when I was principal at Alianza, we had a team called Los Coyotes, which were student athletes from all the various charter schools, including SEBA. And the reason that worked is because of the parent that was making it happen. But that's probably been a few years now. But it might be worth looking into in terms of sort of sharing resources amongst different charter schools with middle school programs. Also, a question I had, Josh or Donna, have you looked into what, number one, if it's even possible, of getting transportation service from the district? The district has a whole bunch of buses. I know when we had events, we could put in a bus request, and you know, the bus would come pick up the kids and so forth. Is that a resource that you've investigated?
Yes, it is. So we've rented minivans, we've used buses from the district, we've used private bus companies for transportation, and then definitely sometimes coaches are driving, especially practices if they're offsite, doing multiple rounds of trips. And Donna's been wonderful at always supporting scholars with all of their transportation needs, as of all of the coaches have really.
And is there a policy at the school for teachers that use their cars to transport students? There's a big liability issue there.
Yes. So you have to be approved by our school, and there's you got to fill out a form, and then we do a background check on that.
Any other questions or comments for Donna and her team? So Donna, if I was to summarize what I heard, your sort of what you're requesting is you're looking for at least a 0.5 athletic director. You're looking for a transportation solution. You're looking for monetary support for equipment, facilities, and I guess equipment would also be uniforms. And you're looking for being put on the agendas of different board meetings where information about the sports programs can be shared. Does that summarize what you're looking for?
Yes, and just to reiterate about the athletic director position, I know that a 0.5 position is something we're going to have to work up towards. I know that next year it's not going to be possible to establish that. But what could happen to make sure that we don't take steps backwards is protecting 1 day a week for a staff member, the staff member that gets hired as the athletic director. They need to have 1 day per week where they can only focus on the athletic director duties. And oftentimes when we say we're going to protect that, we go into the school year and people get pulled in for random tasks all the time. And so we need to show that we're really valuing the sustainability of this program by protecting that time. That has to be protected time.
Right. All right. I don't see any other comments or questions at this point. So thank you very much again for your fabulous presentation, and the board will take up these issues, and it'll be a subject for future, hopefully future action.
I just one more comment. Myself very goal oriented. I want to see like what are next steps, like what can I do, to support, this initiative and these concerns. So I don't want it to kind of like, just like we discussed it today, kind of pushed it aside. As Donna mentioned, the school year begins and we keep on pushing, sports to the side. So I'm not sure if it's something that we can discuss now as in next steps. Like, is this something that we can like agendize for, the next meeting to see what the follow-up is? Just some concrete steps to moving forward, if possible, if we can do that now, or just, bring it up at the next board meeting.
Yeah, we can't, the board at this point can't decide on any actions we're going to take, because it's not an action item. But as I said, the board will review what you've presented and come up with actions and things that we can do down the road.
And as much,
of course,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Well, I was just going to say, as always, staff and community members can always approach Josh or the board to have an item agendized and put on the agenda. So always an option.
Sorry, can you just tell us how to do that? I personally don't know how to do that. So if you can let us know how we can do that.
You can go up to Josh and say, Josh, I'd like to have this item put on the next board meeting agenda.
Is there a particular like time frame? Like, does it have to be like within a week, 2 weeks, any time frame that we have to follow?
What do you say, Josh?
So the agenda is posted on Friday by 5 typically, prior to the next board meeting. So for the next board meeting, it's going to be June 15th. So we need to be here by June 11th. And then for the July board meeting, that would need to be there by July 2nd.
And what I was going to say was that the more data that you can give us around the success of the athletic program, the better off we would all be. I mean, if you come back to us and you show us that the participating athletes have higher GPAs, lower referral rates, fewer suspensions, all of those things that are typical of athletes would be really positive information for us to look at.
We can definitely provide that kind of data, but we also want to make sure that we're valuing the program for what it provides in itself, which is healthy activities for kids to be doing. It keeps the kids busy and they're not getting into things outside of school. It also helps with a lot of de-stress, and it builds really positive relationships for the kids. So we definitely can compile that data. We also need to really hold on to what the program brings just by itself.
That's a given.
I think having a strong athletics program that, I think clearly it's a program that's being developed, and our commitment has to be to make it stronger, because it's a critical asset that families and potential students for the program are looking at. So it could potentially be a big draw, and it's good for students.
Just
So-
one more quick question when it comes to adding things to the agenda, to the board agenda. Any student, staff, or community member can request that, or I'm not sure. I'm just asking, or is it just staff, or like how does that work? Or
Yeah,
any-
so like for example, when we came today, we talked to Imelda. She said, hey, I want to join, have an item on the agenda. Sure. Donna mentioned this at a previous meeting, so I reached out to her in the intervening meetings and said, hey, would you like to speak at the meeting today? She said yes. And then just like we talked about with the college acceptance presentation, so anyone's welcome to come up and request to have something agendized.
Thank you for clarifying that. I'm not too familiar with how boards work. I've been learning over the last few years, so I know there might be a few other stakeholders here that might have those similar questions. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, the board is here to serve you. So, our purpose is to support you in making SABA the best school that it can be. Looks like Anthony has one more comment.
Yeah, I was curious. So you know how PE stops at 8th grade, like it doesn't do it in high school? That's something I would like to add, because I feel like I always like going to PE like during like school, because it's like you get another like little break almost.
We do have PE in 9th grade, but it does stop at 9th grade.
Yeah, like I feel like advancing it more like all high school.
Sure. That is
Thank you.
goal I'd love to have. Yes.
All right, then. Thank you again, Donna, and thank you to your team. Great presentation, gave us a lot to think about. And now we're going to go on to the LCAP hearing.
All right. So this is the first day of the availability of the LCAP, that we can give feedback to it. The LCAP stands for Local Control Accountability Plan. Each local educational authority, or LEA, is required to write an LCAP. The LCAP was suspended last year, and it was replaced by a learning continuity plan. And then for this year and all subsequent years, it's been reformatted. So there was a number of years where it had one format, and this year they came out with a new format. So we're going to go over briefly where our draft LCAP is currently. I'll invite comments, questions during this presentation, and then we will bring this back to the board on June 15th for an approval of our final 2021-22 LCAP. And with that, let's get started. So the LCAP has 6 sections. One thing that's a little bit complicated is when you open up the document, I think it's 48 pages and 10-point font, and so it can be a little bit dense for people to read through. So I created this presentation. This will be on our website where people can kind of click through this presentation. We'll make it bilingual so everyone can kind of see what's going on with the LCAP and what we're planning on doing for the upcoming school year. But basically, there's general information, reflections, successes, reflections, identified needs, LCAP highlights, stakeholder engagement, and then goals and actions. And a lot of the data that goes into the LCAP is pulled from the California School Dashboard. I showed that screenshot of that earlier. that is the metric that California's been using since 2017 to measure school and student academic performance. So first part just goes over the demographics of who we serve here at SEBA. So we're grades 6 through 12, 125 students. You can see our different SEBA student demographics listed there, and that's in the LCAP itself. We have our high school graduation rate, which we're really proud of in this general info, and then the percentage of our students going on to attend a post-secondary institution, which is also really high. Successes we have currently listed in the LCAP, and there could be a lot more. High percentages of our seniors achieving A to G requirements. 70% of students reporting that they feel like their schoolwork is important. I think that 90+% of students feeling like they connected that I presented in my previous meeting could also be added to the success here. Strong student parent participation at parent-teacher conferences and parent leadership meetings. The graduation rate. Our earning English learner reclassification rate is over 20%, average over the last 4 years. We consistently meet our enrollment limit, which is 525 students, and have waiting lists, and this year is no different. We see improving ELA proficiency rates on the SBAC. We've reduced our suspension rates annually, and then we've had significant growth for our socioeconomically disadvantaged and Latinx subgroups in ELA proficiency. So these are all listed in the LCAP itself. Identified needs. So one identified need was social emotional support. So adding a additional credentialed counselor to support students' social emotional needs is there. While our suspension rate from 1920 was lower than previous years, it was still high when we compare it to the state average, which is right around 5%. So we want to keep on reducing that suspension rate. We want to improve math proficiency as measured in the California School Dashboard, and then we want to improve student academic performance for students with disabilities. So these are all in the reflections identified needs. And I do want to emphasize that this is a snapshot, but not everything that is in the LCAP. So there's additional items in there as well. All right, so the LCAP for this year, when you look at the dashboard, which every school has a dashboard metric, there's 8 priority areas: student achievement, student engagement, outcomes, climate, parent involvement, basic services, implementation of state standards, and course access. And so that's what the state is really after when they're asking schools to write out these LCAPs. And then when we went to create our draft LCAP, we used a number of different feedback tools, including information we shared in our charter renewal, information from the minutes of our school site councils, our ELAC-DLAC committee, our federal program monitoring that we went through in the fall of this year and wrapped up in the spring with creating all the rest of the findings there, and then our needs analysis, students, parents, and staff. So stakeholder engagement. How do we get stakeholder engagement on this? So one thing SEBA is going to do this year is we're going to post this LCAP along with this presentation, along with a Google form onto our SEBA website, along with so that families, teachers, students can all provide feedback by just clicking on that Google link. We'll also send that out to families. We did review goals and actions with our parents and guardians at our school site council on May 26th. We did review goals and actions with our English Learner Advisory Council on May 19th. And then now we're here at our board, initial board hearing for the LCAP. Feedback from groups included, and this was also in the needs analysis surveys that were sent out to our staff and our students and families. Strong request for consistent school-wide behavioral expectations and consequences for students. That came from staff, multiple staff. More opportunities for off-campus professional development. A lot of teachers mentioned that they are singletons, which they are, meaning that there is only one teacher in their subject area and grade level. And so it's hard to collaborate closely. Yes, you can collaborate as a department, but if you're teaching, say, algebra and somebody else is teaching algebra, it's not like with like. So they thought off-campus professional development would be of benefit. So that is listed here. more support for understanding students' high school graduation requirements. That was listed as a need in our parent and staff, or excuse me, our parent and student survey responses, and then more support for student social emotional learning needs. So that's some of the feedback that we received so far in creating this LCAP. All right, and then finally we get to the goals and actions. So we have 4 goals, and these goals, while the wording has changed slightly, they've remained the same overall, and what did change significantly were the actions to achieve those goals. So our first goal is all SABA students are academically successful. The LCAP does emphasize creating goals that are smart, like strategic, measurable, time-bound. And when you read these goals, like what does it mean to be academically successful or prepared for college? And there are subcategories in each one of these goals where will have specific metrics that we can measure whether we achieved or did not achieve the goal, just like we did with the 4 goals that I presented in the previous presentation. So for goal 1, we have 4 actions listed. There's actually more, but these are the 4 I highlighted in this presentation. We're going to implement integrated, which we already are, and designated ELD. We heard about that at the beginning of this presentation, or at the beginning of this board meeting. We're going to implement standardized end of unit assessments for the upcoming school year, 2 per quarter. That'll come out of the instructional materials. We're going to continue to administer the Renaissance Star. And then we want to choose and implement a systematic reading support, be it Accelerated Reader, Read 180, Achieve 3000, to support students with gaining reading proficiency. So that's how we will help all of our students be academically successful. When we think about students being prepared for college, we are adopting instructional materials that will ensure that all of our lessons are standards aligned and at grade level appropriate. We're going to provide more pathways for the seal by literacy as a goal for us in this, or action that we want to take for this. We want to provide both AP and dual enrollment course offerings to help our students be prepared for college. For goal 3, parents and guardians are engaged as partners through education, communication, and collaboration to ensure all students are college and career ready. Things we're looking at, or actions we're taking to achieve that goal. We're going to continue with our school attendance review team. I mentioned that in the previous presentation. SABA was unable to participate in the county SARB. The school attendance review board was actually suspended for the county this year, and we were not permitted to participate in the Pajaro Valley Unified School District SARB. So we created our own school attendance review team that held conferences regularly, and we interfaced with different community members to help our students make sure they come to school. And I think it worked really well. So we're going to continue with that team next year. We want to have full school site council participation next year, full ELAC, DLAC participation next year, and then achieve high college knowledge attendance rates for achieving goal 3, which is making sure that our parents and guardians are engaged as partners through collaboration, communication, and education. Then finally, goal 4 actions, helping our students, making sure that all of our students are welcomed into a safe, welcoming, and inclusive environment where students are engaged in their own learning and school community. One of the big actions here is we're going to be implementing a multi-tiered system of supports for the next school year. We'll have PD training on that to kick off the school year, and then have interventions by student and grade level where we'll be using that to provide additional supports to our students to help make sure that everybody's making the right choices when they're here at school. We also want to implement a SABA board chairs. So a SABA board chair is not a voting member of the SABA board of directors, but it would be somebody who would regularly attend these SABA board of director meetings. And so there ideally would be a parent chair, a student chair, a teacher chair, and possibly a classified staff chair. So we are recruiting people for that. We have fortunately received a teacher who is interested, as well as a parent who are interested. And so we'll continue to work on that to make sure we have more stakeholder voice at our SABA board of director meetings. And then finally, we want to implement focused social emotional counseling. And so that's an action we're taking to achieve our safe, welcoming, and inclusive learning environment. Any questions about the LCAP as shown on the screen?
I had a question.
Yes.
So I don't really know what the norm is for LCAP action goals. Like I don't really have like a frame of reference for like what other schools would come up with, but I'm kind of surprised that under goal 1, special ed isn't explicitly addressed. Is that not really a norm for LCAP goals?
No, special education can be addressed in LCAPs, and it is oftentimes. It actually may be in the LCAP itself, and I just didn't put it into the slide deck presentation. I'd have to go back and check.
Okay, cool. Because I would just be curious, like for all SEBA students academically successful, like part of that is having a successful special ed program and, keeping our caseload low and having lots of push and support and things of that nature. So it seems like an actionable thing.
Absolutely.
Josh, what are the subgroups of students that you're responsible for addressing? I'm sure special ed is one of those.
It is, yeah. So socioeconomically disadvantaged, homeless, foster youth, students with disabilities are the 3 that jump out.
Right.
Yeah. And
English learners, excuse me. I forgot about English learners.
I want to say that there is a specific section in the LCAP itself that I was looking at today that addresses students with disabilities.
For the SEBA like action plan.
I believe so, but
well, it's listed in there as a metric, but I mean that's kind of the purpose of having this hearing. So maybe we need to put a little bit more time and thinking into having a really concrete action to better serve our students with disabilities. So that's a great comment, Emily.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
And Josh, one question I had is under goal 1, is there no longer going to be a state test?
No, the state test will return next year. The SBAC or CASP will be back next year in the spring of 2022. So, and that is listed there, and that's also captured in the dashboard. Again, 55-page document condensed down to a few slides here, but we definitely want to see performance there. And there's a whole section where we're talking about us making sure that we're achieving good results on that CASP exam.
So in your the 1 through 4 actions there, the SBAC is addressed?
The SBAC is addressed in goal 1 specifically.
But not on here.
Correct, because this is just a short, the set doesn't have everything that's listed in the LCAP.
Yeah, I understand that. And I can certainly appreciate the reason why we do that. But since we are a charter school and we will live or die by how we do on the SBAC, I want to make sure that we always include that in our highest priority items.
Yeah, and the other thing, I agree with you completely, Michael. And the other thing is, so when we say like, okay, high performance on the SBAC, that would be a result. And then the actions we're taking are listed on this screen here. So implementing designated ELD goes towards SBAC. Implementing standardized and unit assessments goes towards SBAC, reading assessment and so on.
Great. Other questions or comments for Josh from the LCAP? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so let's go on to action items.
Thank you.
And the first thing we have in action items is the consent agenda. Is there anything that anybody wants to pull off the consent agenda, or do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'm not hearing any questions. How about a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks, Larry. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
And do we still have Olivia with us?
I don't see that we do.
Unless that's her on the phone, 831-588-3109. I did send her, she asked to call in, and I sent her the call-in number.
Olivia,
If
you
she-
still there? Well, we
Yeah, if
still
she
have a
doesn't
quorum, correct, with 3 board members?
Yeah, and if she doesn't identify herself, then I'm just going to assume in the attendance and the minutes that she's not here.
Okay. So all those in favor, Michael Jones votes yes to approve the consent agenda. Gershom
Yes.
and Larry,
Yes.
thank you. Alrighty, moving on to the LCAP annual update and LCP update. We need to basically approve what Josh just presented, correct?
This agenda item is slightly different. So my presentation was for the 21-22 LCAP.
Oh,
that
right.
Draft form. This learning continuity plan and LCAP annual update is from previous years. What you're going to see in this document, though, is a lot of yellow highlighted TBD inconclusive because there was not an SBAC administered 2 years ago, and we didn't administer an SBAC this year, or excuse me, 1 year ago, and there was no SBAC administered this year. And a lot of the achievement results are based on that. And then the rest of the data in here is just basically an update on how we did on the LCAP in the former format, along with the learning continuity plan, which took the place of the LCAP during the 2021 school year.
All right. Is there any questions or comments for Josh? Not hearing any. Is there a motion to approve? Is that Olivia?
Yes, that is me. And I have been on the meeting, but I didn't know how to unmute. So just finally, I've had nothing but trouble today, so.
No, sounds frustrating. But I'm going to give you an opportunity to make a motion to approve the annual update for 2019-20 LCAP and LCP.
I motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Thanks, Larry. All those in favor, vote. Michael Jones votes yes. Gershom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
And Olivia?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Josh, on to the ELO grant.
Okay, the Extended Learning Opportunities Grant is a grant to increase our students' ability to gain access to education for the upcoming school year. We did a lot of stakeholder input in determining what would go into this grant that I'm going to submit tonight at the end of this meeting. And give me 1 second, I'm having my computer is pausing. I can go over what's in this document. So basically, I'm just going to speak to it, but it's expanding instructional learning time. So we're going to offer fast forwarding clubs after school for the upcoming school year. A lot of the stipends that we're going to offer will be paid out of this Extended Learning Opportunities Grant. The adoption of instructional materials, some of the funds to do that will be included in this Extended Learning Opportunities Grant. Supports for credit deficient students will be included here. And so we had a number of students who either received a pass, which is insufficient to achieve UC-CSU entrance. So they'll be taking summer school credit recovery or taking credit recovery next year. Costs associated with that are included. But basically it goes over how we're going to use the grant money that the state provided us for the upcoming school year.
Sounds great. Is that in response to COVID, or is that one of the ways the governor came up with to spend the surplus?
It was in response to COVID to make sure that all of our students are learning.
I want to say, yeah, I want to say it's a bit of both. He came out with this, I think it was part of his proposal in January.
Great. Okay. Is there a motion to approve our ELO grant? Oh, I should ask first, are there any questions or comments regarding the ELO grant?
I'm confused what you're voting on. You're voting on whether or not Josh can send in the grant application?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
A motion.
Oh, go ahead and motion to approve.
Olivia motions and Gershom, did you second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And how do we vote? Michael Jones votes yes. Larry,
Yes.
Gershom,
Yes.
and Olivia.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes. Moving on to the Charter Safe member contract for 2021-22.
Thank you, Michael. So we want to continue partnering with CharterSafe for the upcoming school year. CharterSafe provides SEBA with insurance, and so and a number of services, including staff trainings that we are all very familiar with for those staff who work here on online modules. And basically the 4 attachments here are, I'm requesting that the board approve the contract with CharterSafe for the upcoming 21-22 school year. The reason it's on agenda is it's over that $10,000 threshold.
For the education that they do, how many workshops do they actually do during the course of the year?
Well, they're all online modules, and I'll speak for myself. I think that they're high quality. I think there's so many that we have to do that it can kind of get draining having to go through them. But if you are paying attention, you are bound to learn a lot by going through those online modules. And the number varies, but I mean, there's literally probably over 100 different modules, and the list that we have to complete each year continues to grow.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any flexibility around timing of when we can do that. But I understand some of it's really important to get out in front of staff at the very beginning of the year.
True. And yeah, I don't know how much, well, most of them we do have to get completed by like September 1st, I want to say is the date. But
I will just add that most of the accountability for it is with your authorizer, not with CharterSafe itself. They will push you to complete as early as possible, and they'll give you overdue dates when you don't complete on time. But there's not a massive accountability that they have. Frequent reminders.
Okay.
You do have that flexibility, but it's still a best practice to get all the required ones done, as you said, sort of towards the beginning of the school year, Josh.
So does CharterSafe give reports or updates as to the number of teachers that have completed the required modules?
Yes.
Yeah.
And have you ever had any communication from the PVUSD about how your staff was doing in completing those?
no, but I mean, we kind of just take on that responsibility personally. So we'll follow up with the staff to make sure that everybody's completed these trainings.
Good.
It's an onerous job. It's part of the growing list of compliance items that charter school staff have to complete now. But it is also a best practice, and you want to be above board and be in compliance with what the insurance company says you should be in compliance with, because it's not just a best practice, but it eliminates any risk that you have as a school.
Yeah, I know that my principal's staff meeting on all those required areas was always a highlight for my teachers when I had to give them those or do that workshop with them. So it sounds like CharterSafe has a much better solution than one person having to go through all that stuff.
Yeah,
I would say
much better.
CharterSafe give us a large selection from which we can assign, and they definitely give us guidance as to what we should cover, And that really helps us build our list that we push the button and turn on and say, okay, our staff needs to complete this. And after that's given, it's pushed out to staff and we're able to monitor who completed which ones or who didn't complete specific trainings.
Yeah, it's a headache, but that's an area where schools can get in so much trouble. So that's great to hear you have a good solution for it. So
yeah, we do have one question in the chat. Emily asks if PVUSD provides the trainings or decides the trainings which we have to do.
No. I suppose they could, but they do not. So just like Daniel described, we are safe. They tell us, hey, what's going on, where's there lots of energy, maybe in terms of risk mitigation, and they'll say, okay, yeah, you need to really work on this here. There's been a lot of cases of this or that, and so that's where those learning modules come from. And probably 80% of the ones that you complete are required year to year.
Required by who though? That's my question.
That's a great question. Varying authorities. So some are by the state, some are by charter state. So it's like it kind of varies by.
Some by like OSHA.
Some by OSHA. Yeah.
Got it.
Most of them are state required, either because statute has been passed by legislators to require charter schools and charter school staff to do them, or because you know, your authorizer included it as part of your MOU that you would do all the so-called required trainings, and sometimes they don't specify which are the required ones, so you just do all of them out of an abundance of caution.
Got it. Well, it's nice that they're online so that we can do them, like, you know, on our own time.
Yeah, 6 years ago in the PVSD, individual principals were responsible for giving instruction to their staff on all those different issues that you have to address. I'm pretty sure, I would imagine that the PVSD has gone to the same kind of solution as Charter Safe is.
I'm sure they have.
Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments regarding the Charter Safe contract? Is there a motion to approve our contract?
Motion.
Thank you, Gershom. Larry, are you raising your hand a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, we are now vote, and Michael Jones votes yes. Olivia, how do you vote? I'll go to Gershom. Gershom, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Larry?
Yes.
And I'm going to give Olivia one more chance to vote.
Yes, I'm here.
And how do you vote on
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. All right. Let's move on to the head of school evaluation committee. Oh, that's me.
You want me to share the diagram, Michael?
Yeah, that'd be great. So one of the things that we need to do is evaluate the performance of our head of school every year. And so I put together a little flow chart or a little diagram about how this might look. And it's essentially what we've been doing this year. At the beginning of the school year, in September, the head of school will organize his annual or her annual performance goals for the year and presents them to the board for approval. Oh, that's actually in the summer. And then in September, and then again in December, and again in March, the head of school will provide a update on how progress is going in achieving the goals, the annual performance goals. And then, as he did tonight, in May, or in this case, June, I guess, but optimally May, the head of school presents a final goal summary of what's been achieved over the course of the year. And then an evaluation committee made up of some of the board members reviews the summary and then makes a recommendation to be approved at the June meeting. So we're sort of behind by a little bit, but that's workable. The summary or what gets approved by the evaluation committee would be basically to review the performance of the executive or the head of school, and make determinations as to whether that performance was exemplary or satisfactory or not satisfactory. And at any point during the course of the year, say when the reports come in, the board has the option of making a determination that performance is not satisfactory and working out a plan to address whatever the issue or concern is. So that's basically the evaluation process that is being proposed. Any comments or thoughts?
Those performance goals, those come from Josh's head of school report, or what are those performance goals?
They're the annual performance goals that he shares with the board in the summer before school starts.
In today's presentation, he presented on the metrics of the organizational goals. So those were established at the beginning of this school year.
That was in the head of school report, or?
Yes.
Okay, and that was the head of school report, and that was the.
So there was 2021 goals, and then there was ongoing goals. And so during the summer, we'll probably presumably keep the ongoing goals, and then we might develop some specific goals to 21-22 school year. And then I would report similar to what I did today out at these time intervals.
Okay, so those 5 priority areas, the SABLE organizational goals for 2021, those are the performance goals that the evaluation committee are looking at?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Questions or comments? One of the important things that we need to do is to have an evaluation committee to spend some time before the next board meeting to review Josh's report and come up with a recommendation, sort of an end of year recommendation regarding Josh's performance. And I would be part of that. And I was wondering if there was another board member who would like to join me in that effort, or 2.
I'd be happy to
3.
do you.
Thanks, Larry.
It's not a real possibility to have more than 2 if you want to have.
Oh, that's right.
If you want to have anything else but a board meeting. I mean, if you have 3 or more, then it's a board meeting.
Right.
So
right.
The best would be to have 2 members of the board on this committee.
So Larry and I will take on that challenge, and I'll get in touch with Larry to do that. Josh, if you could send me I guess I have a copy of your of that report you shared. So that's great. So that is an action item. This is the evaluation system that's being proposed. Is there any other comments or questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Larry moves to approve. Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Thank you, Olivia. Michael votes yes. Gershom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Olivia, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Right.
Just for the record, Michael, just make sure that in the minutes, this is the creation of an ad hoc committee, not a standing committee. You don't have any standing committees, but this should be specified since it is something that's short-term in nature, and it can happen every year, but it doesn't need to happen all year. It can happen just for a couple months each year as an ad hoc.
Oh, thank you. Good point.
Noted.
All right.
Thank you.
And that takes care of action items. Now we go on to board recruitment. Vic, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you, board members. Just a monthly update and request. I know you've all been working hard and thinking about how you hardworking board members can work yourselves out of a job one day. But joking aside, we still have a goal, not yet met, to recruit additional members to the board. It would be, I think, ideal to have an odd number. So the goal that we set out at the beginning of the year was additional couple of members, but if we could only get one additional member, that would be just fine as well. An odd number of board members is slightly better in the rare instance when you have a split vote. You don't want to have an even vote, but since that's a very rare occurrence, it's also just as advisable to have an even number of board members. But the important thing is that you keep putting the word out. I know it's out already on the website and has been talked about by you board members, but just want to put that reminder out again to keep on doing that.
Yeah, I want to thank Larry for bringing on what looked like a very promising candidate, but that didn't quite work. And we had another person that expressed interest, and then that person backed out. So we're getting close. So I think if we give one more push between now and next meeting, that would be a good thing to do, because we definitely need some more board members. All righty. Any other comments or thoughts regarding board recruitment? Okay, then we'll go to closing items. Oh, and we see here items for the next board meeting. So this is, if there's something that somebody wants to see on the agenda for the next meeting, again, get that information to Josh, and we will get it on the agenda. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I will motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Olivia. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Gershom. The motion to adjourn, I vote yes. Michael Jones votes yes. Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gershom, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Olivia?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Again, thanks to Imelda for her wonderful presentation, and thanks to Donna and her team for their great presentation. It's been a full meeting, but lots of great stuff. So thanks everybody for participating. And we'll see you at the next board meeting.